Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. I hope you all are having a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, but it's Monday, so you know what that means. We got to take a look at Go Collect's hottest trending comics for the week of May 28th. Now, for those who don't know, Go Collect puts out bi-weekly articles that switch between hottest comics and trending comics. This week, we got trending comics once again, so we're going to take a look at this list and see what is moving in the market. But before I get into the list, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get into this article here today. Of course, I will put a link in the description if you guys want to do further reading. These lists are always written by Matt Tuck, who always does a great job doing his analysis, but I will give you mine here as well. And starting in at the number 5 pick, we got a very, very cool book, one that I'm sure you guys have been all eyeing off the heels of Multiverse of Madness, but this one is Doctor Strange, number 169, new to the list this week, sitting in the 100 slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the book written by Roy Thomas in 1968, drawn by Dan Atkins, that would feature the first titled series for the character Doctor Strange. Now, even though this book isn't an official big premiere issue book, I kind of equate this one like all the other 1968 title series books. That kind of feels like this is sort of the very first kickoff point for one of the titular characters of the Marvel Universe. And in this particular case, we got Doctor Strange. Now, this book, in my opinion, has been very undervalued in the market for quite some time. But of course, coming off the heels of Multiverse of Madness, all eyes go back to Doctor Strange. What Benedict Cumberbatch is doing for the character is really elevating them into the, zeitgeist of pop culture. And a lot of the Doctor Strange keys are finally starting to go up in value. And this book right here is such a good book to have in the collection. I mean, when you think about Strange Tales 110, I mean, still an iconic book, first appearance of Doctor Strange as a character. But as everybody knows, Doctor Strange is not on the cover. The cover leaves a little to be desired in that regard. And, when you go throughout the Strange Tales series, there's not many Doctor Strange covers that are all that appealing until we get to 1968 with this cover right here. And this is one of probably the most satisfying Doctor Strange covers you could own, at least in terms of Silver Age comics that are out there. I mean, he's right there front and center using his projection magic. It says Doctor Strange right there in the title. And for all those reasons, collectors are finally starting to take notice, and this book is finally moving a lot in the market. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look here at some of the various grades. 9.8s have 39 on the census. Fair market value suggests to be 17,000, although the 1 year moving is at the $15,000 range, 90-day moving 15,000, 30-day we haven't had a sale in some time. Let's take a look at the 9.4s where we can see the 30-day moving. Census 109 on the census, fair market value 2,500, 30-day moving 2,700, which is slightly down from what we saw with the 1 year moving on this book. But I think that where the new floor, wherever this thing settles, in a few months' time, I don't actually think it's going to drop that much further down because of the fact that I think that this book has been so undervalued in the market that, now it's going to be a little more comparable to some of those other books like Iron Man #1 or Submariner #1 or Silver Surfer #1. And then down here at the bottom, Go Collect has like a 3.0 around the $190 range, although you can see the 1 year moving for this book around the $300 level. And I think that that's actually true. I think a lot of people just want to get their hands on this book, so especially at those low grade numbers where this book used to be, say, a $100 book a couple years ago. Now it's selling around that $300 level. When I go into eBay looking for even the lowest grade versions of the book, typically speaking, you're still gonna have to pay around that $250 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the fourth hottest trending comic of the week. And the fourth hottest trending comic of the week is a very cool one. This is Batman Vengeance of Bane #1, new to the list this week, sitting in the 91st spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be a book that came out in 1992, written by Chuck Dixon, and would feature the first appearance of the Batman villain known as Bane. Now, I'm sure we're all very familiar with Bane. Tom Hardy played Bane in the Batman Dark Knight Rises movie done by Christopher Nolan, and we recently got the Batman film with Robert Pattinson. And kind of like I mentioned with the Silver Age hot list, where I was talking about the character of Scarecrow and the character of Poison Ivy, basically all of the Batman keys, especially when it comes to the rogue gallery of villains, have been moving in the market because a lot of renewed energy has been poured into the Batman franchise because of the success of the Robert Pattinson film. So a lot of people are speculating now, who's the next villain going to be out there in the market. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that we're going to be getting Bane. I mean, when we think about the Pattinson Batman, it didn't feel that long ago that we actually got Bane in the Christopher Nolan film. So it doesn't feel like that would be the right choice for them, but that didn't stop speculators from speculating on this character right here. Apparently, Matt points out in the article, there were some Easter eggs that laid the foundation for the character of Bane Bane in the Batman film. Let me know in the comments if you guys saw those ones. I'm not actually familiar with what those Easter eggs were, but of course, Bane is one of the great characters in the Batman franchise. A lot of people love this character. A lot of people felt like, kind of hit and miss with how Tom Hardy portrayed Bane, but I've really come to love the portrayal of the character and sort of the prose that he would spout to Batman. Some of those lines that he had in that movie were absolutely amazing. But as we dig into the numbers, we'll take a look here at some of the values across the grades. There's a few 9.9s on the census, but haven't been a sale in quite some time. So let's focus on the 9.8s. Census 1,155. Fair market value has it around the $575 range. 30-day moving around the $628 range. So definitely a book that is, been slowly creeping up in value, especially coming off the heels of the Batman. I mean, it had its big rise up in 2021 with the market, kind of had some ups, downs. Maybe it's going a little bit down right now, but I definitely think, due to the excitement of the Batman film, it's kind of raising its value in terms of its floor price. 9.6 has a fair market value of $200, a 30-day moving kind of right around that at 205. And then of course, 1992 book, not going to see too many slabs at the low grade, but when you go into eBay looking for this thing, you can usually find decent presenting copies selling around that $100 price point. All right, let's go on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week. And the third hottest trending comic of the week is one that I've talked about on this channel many times, a book that many people have been talking about for quite some time. This is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 3, new to the list, sitting in the 43rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be a book that came out in 1984, would be the third issue of the superhero crossover event known as Secret Wars, a book written by Jim Shooter and drawn by Mike Zeck that would feature the first appearance of the character Titania. Now, we recently got the She-Hulk trailer and we got the first images of Titania played by Jamila Jamil. And a lot of people, kind of were commenting on that trailer. The VFX were kind of looking a little bit suspect, if you ask me. Not really sure if the show is going to be all that good, but that didn't stop the speculation market from jumping on characters like, Frogman or even the She-Hulk 1 book. And in this particular case, this book that we're looking at right here, which is the first appearance of the villain character. Now, apparently Titania is going to be the main villain of the She-Hulk show. Would make a lot of sense. Titania has had a long history of battling She-Hulk, and I really do like the actress Jamila Jamil. I think that she's had a lot of great comedic roles in other shows previously, and I think that she might do something kind of interesting with the Titania character. I could definitely see her as a villain sort of hanging around in the Marvel universe from time to time. She can be one of those characters that is kind of a comic relief villain in the Disney Plus shows here and there, and for that reason, I kind of like this book a little bit for having a longer future. I also like the fact that it is a Secret Wars number 3. So I do think that there are some interesting things about this book, and it definitely feels like when we get Titania in the She-Hulk show that week that we see her, this will definitely be one that continues to get hot in the market. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look here at some of the values. 9.8 has 723 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be $200, 30-day moving at 219. This is actually a lot lower than what it was a year ago at 291, where you could see here in the comic book market of 2021, this one had a massive increase, and it's had a really big pullback overall to where the floor that it is selling at now is actually not that far off of where it was previous to the market boom, which to me, if Titania was a character that I really love, this would give me some confidence that it's going to continue to go up here in the near future when we get the She-Hulk show, and that it could actually be a pretty good entry point into this book, which is maybe why it is moving a lot in the market on top of the fact that we saw her in the trailer. 9.6s have fair market value at the $90 range, 30-day moving, $97, kind of right in line. $100 for a 9.6. That seems pretty reasonable if you ask me. And then of course down here at the bottom, you're not going to see it slabbed at the low grade, but typically when you go into eBay looking for raw copies of this book, you can still find them being sold around that $30 to $40 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is a book that continues to be trending, actually surprisingly so. But this one right here is Ghost Rider number 28, up 6 spots, sitting in the 37th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the book, of course, written by Howard Mackie that came out in 1992 and would feature the first cameo appearance of the Midnight Suns. It would also feature the first appearance of the villain character known as Lilith. And this has been a book that has been super hot in the market for, quite some time now. I feel like the rumors of the Midnight Suns came out at least, 6-7 months ago. And this is one of those books that really blew up in the market. And unlike other spec books out there in the market that get hot due to rumors out there, coming out in the MCU, this book has actually really held around for quite some time. I mean, there were people that were thinking that, Ghost Rider might might show up in Multiverse of Madness. There has been that video game, The Midnight Suns, which maybe gave, more legs for this book. But this one is really surprising to me that it's been able to sort of manufacture its demand for all these months, even though we haven't actually gotten the payoff for The Midnight Suns yet. But that said, it all seems pretty obvious that, the MCU is going to The Midnight Suns. Definitely feels like, Blade is building the team. Now, one of the other things that is interesting about this book is that this is the first cameo appearance of the Midnight Suns. I mean, you do see it in the name right there in the title, Rise of the Midnight Suns, but it's not until Ghost Rider number 31 where we actually get the first full appearance of the team. And that one is really interesting to me. I'm a little curious as to why 31 hasn't been the book that has popped off in the market. Maybe it has to do with sort of the Bishop factor, or because you see Midnight Suns there in the title on this book, most of the people are still going to gravitate to this one. Maybe it's just that the cover on this one is just super badass with Ghost Rider on it. I also do like this book because of the fact that it is the first appearance of Lilith, and it does seem like if we're going to get a Midnight Suns plotline, if they don't decide to go the Mephisto route, which I think they should, they might go the Lilith route, and that would give this book extra value as well. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look here at some of the values. 9.8 has 818 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be around the $160 range, 30-day moving at 165. This is still a lot lower than it was, say, a year ago when a lot of people were speculating on this thing. You can see here in September, this one actually had some sold prices around the $471 level. So even though I said that this book has legs, I mean, there has been quite a little bit of a correction overall in this thing. And then of course, down here at the bottom, not going to see it slabbed at the low grade, but when you go into eBay looking for this book, it's still a book selling around that $20, $25, $30 range or so. All right, and let's move on now to the hottest trending comic of the week. And the hottest trending comic of the week is a book that, of course, is going to be one of the hottest trending comics, a Jane Foster book. This one, of course, is What If, number 10, up 25 spots, sitting in the 33rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the What If book written by Don Glut and drawn by John Buscema that came out in 1978. And we feature the first appearance of Jane Foster as Thor. Now, we recently got that teaser and the first full trailer of Thor: Love and Thunder, where we, of course, saw Natalie Portman taking up the mantle of Thor, and the comic book market went absolutely nuts for Thor number 1, Thor number 2, this book right here as well. But there's been some conversation about, this one being the true first appearance of Thor, or Jane Foster as Thor, versus Thor number 1, which, by all accounts is actually her second cameo appearance, even though she's on the cover. But, whichever book you end up deciding to go for, whichever book you actually feel like is the true first appearance, this book right here is probably always going to command a higher dollar amount than Thor number 1 because of the fact that this is just an older book. There's going to be less on the census, and for that reason, the demand aspect is going to be higher for this one. But this is one of those books, because it is more expensive, I think was a little slower to sort of take off in the market, but now we're seeing it here on the Go Collect list, and this is the one that I feel like, collectors, or at least the older school of collectors, who are wanting to jump on the Jane Foster character, are probably eyeing this book right here. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look here at some of the values across the grades. 9.8 has 152 on the census. Fair market value has it at the $1,650 range. There hasn't been a sale in the 30 days, so hard to know what this book would be selling for. 9.6 has 290 on the census. Fair market value is suggested to be $1,000. This definitely seems wrong by Go Collect because the 30-day moving is only 462, which is actually kind of surprising that this book hasn't been able to sort of break its previous record high due to the fact of the trailer, but that's kind of where we are with the comic book market right now and the economy. So I can understand why it's not setting all new record prices, but the fact that it's on this list definitely shows that it is moving a lot in the market. And then down here, it is a 1978 book, so there are some mid-grade slabs. I mean, the 5.0 has a fair market value around the $120 range. 30-day moving is $140. And then down here at the very, very bottom, you're not going to see it slabbed at that low of a grade. But typically, when you go into eBay looking for this book, you can usually find copies selling around that $100 range or so. Well, that is all I have for this video. Those were Go Collect's hottest trending comics of the week. Let me know what you guys think. It's really interesting. If we think about the spec market, what books are moving in the market, what things are hot, what's setting all new record prices and things like that, it definitely feels like the spec market overall has cooled off. But when we think about books that still relate to movies like Thor: Love and Thunder or She-Hulk, the trailer, or the Batman movie, definitely still feels like there is a fervor in the market for whatever's in front of us. So it feels like, with these hot lists, it's less so that we're going to be getting these speculative books that are way out there in the distant future, and more so going to be like, okay, what is in front of us? What's the next movie? What's the next Disney Plus show? Those are going to be ones that are trending a lot in the market. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next one.